Okay, Heather, do you want to run the meeting or would you like me to?
It might be better if you do, just because of the setup. Is that
Okay.
all right?
Sure. There's a little bit of a change from a typical meeting where if we need to vote on anything, we have to take a roll call vote as opposed to the ayes have it. So we'll go ahead and get started. This is the September 1st, 2020 Traffic Commission meeting. We'll go ahead and get started with new business. The first item of business. Oh, wait, we have to approve the March 3rd, 2020 meeting.
I move those minutes be approved as communicated.
Second.
Jeremy.
All right, who? Okay, I had a second from
Bob Stwally.
Bob Stwally. Okay, let me see here. So we have to call roll. I'll go right down who I see on the screen. So we have Bob Downing.
Here.
Yay or nay
Yeah.
on approval of the meeting minutes? Was that a yay?
Bob?
Oh, you're talking to me. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Ron Campbell.
Yay.
Let's see. Heather Maddox.
Yay.
Sally Fahey.
Yes.
Bob Stwally.
Yes.
And Bob Metzger.
Yes.
I'm not missing anybody, am I? That should be voting. All right. See, if it's city council, you have Cindy Murray. She calls the roll for everybody. So I haven't been doing this. So new business. We have a speeding concern on South 30th Street. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And the complaint was 30th Street from Union Street all the way to Kossuth Street. The complainant lives between South and Kossuth Street. So if you were to take a look at a representative piece of that street, this is the road that we're talking about. There's parking allowed on one side of the street. It's pretty narrow. This is in the neighborhood over there near Columbian Park. And so we asked the traffic department to put out the traffic counters and look at the speeds there. And speed limit's 25 miles per hour. We have about 400 vehicles per day on this street, so pretty low volume. The average speed we found was between 28 and 29 miles per hour, so that's reasonable. But when you think that there's 50% of vehicles that are traveling over that speed, you start looking at the 85th percentile speed, and we had speeds around 35 to 36, which is considerably over the speed limit. And then we had top speeds typically in the 40 to 44 range, but we had some that were even over 50 miles per hour, which is just, looking at the street, you wouldn't think that people would be driving that fast there, but that's what we found. And we left the counters out for an entire week, so we weren't just getting an hour or two. We have a whole week's worth of data, and that's what we're finding. So we did pass this over to the police as an enforcement issue. And I don't know, Sergeant Anderson, if you have an update on enforcement status or anything.
I don't have anything to share at this time.
we've put out the information to our officers that have not received any information back.
Okay. So the police are on it. They know that there's an enforcement issue here. And I'm not coming to the commission with a solid recommendation of a mitigation strategy at this point, other than to say that my recommendation is to continue to study this area and bring some mitigation recommendations back to Traffic Commission at a subsequent meeting. Some of the things we could look at are stop sign placement. If you look all the way from south to Kossuth, there are no stop signs on 30th Street, so that's one. And typically we don't want to use stop signs to slow traffic, but I want that to be clear. But also, this is a grid neighborhood street system, so there could be some stop sign changes that would make sense from the overall traffic flow in the neighborhood and not just to be used to slow traffic. So that's something we could look at. Other signage, I know it is posted 25 at the major entry points to the corridor, but perhaps adding some additional speed limit signage. Parking, how it's laid out, could we maybe, right now parking is allowed on one side of the street, could we maybe alternate that between blocks so that it's not a straight shot through there? That's something that we can look at. So there's a number of things that we can look at and then come back to the commission at the next meeting with some mitigation recommendations. And, you know, if anybody has any thoughts on this, I would entertain those right now.
Well, certainly seems like something should be done there because those people are, so many are exceeding the speed limit. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and to go back to the map, you know, speed humps are, you know, they're a solution in some instances, but when you have a grid network like this, if you put speed humps on 30th Street, then you just push all the people who want to speed over to 31st Street and 29th Street, and it just continues. So speed humps are really not a good solution in this situation. So, and I've already explained that to the complainant, and he completely understands. He was just hoping that we would look at the situation and maybe come up with some mitigation strategies. So he's not pushing particularly for speed humps, even though he saw them recently installed on State Street, but he's not necessarily pushing for those solely. So,
Jeremy, this is Sally.
yes.
I agree something needs to be done. This is probably since I've been on the Traffic Commission, this is probably one of the most egregious situations I think we've seen. And I agree with you about the grid system. I think we probably don't want stop signs if we can avoid it. But I really do.
Sally, you're breaking up.
Well, it's somewhere in the system.
Okay.
Jeremy, it started when the recording started.
Try now, Sally.
Okay. Anyway, I really like the idea and would like to see this one pursued more as an idea, and that's the alternating the parking. I think, in fact, I was going to say allow parking on both sides and just leave one lane, and people would have to figure it out, but that's probably not realistic. So alternating parking probably would be my top choice, at least pre-data collection. And then the other thing, by the next time we meet, perhaps the police department will have been able to gather some data about, or information about what's going on, what they observe, and whether or not there were any tickets issued.
Sounds good. Thank you. I think what's happening with the sound is my microphone is very sensitive, and if someone else is trying to talk, it's picking up ambient noise in my office and trying to run two-way sound. So that's I muted myself and it worked. So all right. So I don't know if we need to. I don't know that we need a vote on this particular item. Other than we're continuing this to a subsequent meeting. The next.
Whoops.
Who was that?
It was me, but never mind. You can go ahead. It wasn't important.
Okay. The next one is speeding on Amherst Drive. So Amherst Drive is in the Glen Acres neighborhood. Just to give a little context, this is Greenbush Street that's east-west, and then Creasy Lane north-south. Amherst Drive connects to Shenandoah Drive. And then if you're headed east from Shenandoah and Amherst, it curves into Kensington Drive, which continues down to Creasy Lane. Glen Acres Elementary is right here, south of Amherst Drive. So this is about a 1,250-foot stretch of pavement. There are no stop signs, no intersecting roads in this stretch. And here's what it looks like. There's parking allowed on both sides. It's a little bit wider than the previous street we were looking at. So something that surprised me is you would expect there to be even more speeding here, but there's not. Let me bring up. This is our finding. Speed limit here is also 25. Daily traffic is under 300 vehicles a day. Our average speed is about 25, and 85th percentile speeds are between 27 and 32. So still in a reasonable range. And our top speeds are in the 30 to 34 range with outliers over 40, just a little over 40. So I think that a much more reasonable situation here. My recommendation is, and I'll listen to other people's thoughts on this, but my recommendation is do nothing, because this is more of a perceived issue than a real issue. I think there's a lot of neighborhoods that would like to see this kind of compliance with the speed limits in the neighborhoods. So, but if you have any thoughts on it, I would entertain those right now.
This is Sally again. I agree with you. I think this is more perceived than real. And I agree that probably a lot of neighborhoods would like to see this kind of compliance.
All right, so do we want to vote on a do nothing scenario here?
I don't think a person should be going over 40 miles per hour in a school zone.
I would agree, but this is not. I'll go back to the map. Let me turn on the. So here's the school at this, bottom middle portion of the screen there, and Kimberly Drive is the east-west road just north of the school. And then if you go one block further, that's Amherst. So we're not directly in front of the school. This would not be a school zone.
Wouldn't that turn into a school zone to the, I'm guessing the down would be to the south of it?
What was that question?
Would it not be a school zone to the south of Kimberly Drive?
Kensington, yeah, that's Kensington. And yes, there is a school zone on Kensington. We were looking at this piece of Amherst before it turns and turns into Kensington Drive.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the way I understand it, Jeremy, is they aren't complaining about Kensington. They're only complaining about Amherst, right?
That's true. And I believe that the complaint comes from somebody who lives about mid-block on Amherst Drive.
I've been over there several times because it's my area, and there's sometimes there's some rentals over there. Sometimes they move in, move out, and some of those speeders were associated with being some of the renters. If that makes any sense, but I haven't noticed it being that heavy that much. But I just spot checked it myself.
I think they may have moved over to 30th Street.
Yeah.
My uncle actually lives on Amherst, see where that red roof is. So right off Shenandoah, and I asked him about it when I saw it on the agenda, and he hasn't noticed anything. I mean, he said it's a cut through, which I didn't think about. He said they do get traffic because people cut through there on Creasy, but nothing. He said nothing overly that he was concerned about, but
Yeah, that would support what we're seeing. And I do agree that people do cut through, although, you know, a daily traffic count of 300 is not real high either. I believe we took these in May, though. That would have some bearing on the situation, because you wouldn't have the school traffic in May because of COVID. Anyway, do we have a motion here to vote on?
Jeremy and Bob Swally here. I move we do nothing about Amherst.
Okay. We have a motion. And that was Sally, second. All right, we'll take a roll call. Bob Downing. Oh, you're muted, Bob.
Yes.
Ron Campbell.
Hey.
Yes.
Heather Maddox.
yes.
Sally Fahey.
Yes.
Bob Swally.
Yes.
And Bob Metzger.
Yes.
All right. Motion passes. We'll move on in the agenda to old business. I think I talked about this last time, that there was going to be a 3rd and 4th Street conversion study looking at the downtown area between Alabama Street and the Harrison Bridge, and determining the feasibility of converting that to from a one-way pair to two-way. This is primarily a project that's being driven out of the Economic Development Department, but I wanted to bring an update on it. So with this project, we had a couple public meetings and multiple stakeholder meetings with the businesses along the corridors. We collected traffic counts. We did analysis to determine whether it's even feasible from a traffic standpoint, and it is. Then developed some conceptual layouts looking at the north and the south termini of the two corridors, as well as a proposed cross section. Up at the north end, so this is where the Harrison Bridge is. This is looking down on the Harrison Bridge. This is the ramp that would connect 4th Street to Union Street. This would be the Harrison Bridge coming down from West Lafayette into Lafayette. And then this would be the bridge that would come down from West Lafayette to 3rd Street. The recommendation here, if 4th Street is two-way, you can see the yellow line there. If you're southbound on 3rd Street, right now you can turn left onto Union Street. After the conversion, you'll be able to either turn left onto Union Street, or you'll be able to go south onto 4th Street from that same location. So really not much of a change here other than in signage and pavement markings, but not a lot of change in the geometry of the roadway is necessary for that to work. If you were southbound and you wanted to continue onto 3rd Street, you would just remain like you would today and go underneath of the 3rd Street ramp there and continue southbound on 3rd Street. We would also still allow the eastbound to southbound movement onto 3rd Street, this ramp, to stay in place. So you would still be able to go southbound on 3rd Street from there. If you move
Jeremy,
south.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, but you can't go north on 3rd, right?
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. If you go just a little bit, south of here, so what we were looking at was just off the top of this. I've scrolled down a little bit so that you can see Cincinnati Street here. So if you're northbound on 3rd Street, Cincinnati would be the farthest you could go. You'd have to turn right and go over to 4th Street and use 4th Street to continue northbound. And you can kind of see how the ramp from West Lafayette on the Harrison Bridge, it comes in right here. And then you have the southbound from Fannin comes in here. And this particular intersection, this is not a final design, this is a concept. If we move forward with this, we would really look at, merge distances from the ramp, that kind of thing, as we designed this. But it does appear that this would be a feasible terminus point for northbound traffic on 3rd Street and southbound, as well as southbound traffic. Then if we go down to the south end of the corridor, this is Alabama Street here. This is the Lafayette Auto Supply here. And then this used to be, I don't know if it still is, the jury parking lot for the county.
It is.
Okay, so right now, 4th Street is two-way on the south side of this intersection, and it becomes one-way north of this intersection. It really doesn't need to change from a geometry standpoint. It's all again, just signage and pavement markings that would allow this to become a two-way street. And then 3rd Street right now is currently southbound north of Alabama, and it's two-way south of Alabama. Again, just some striping and pavement marking changes would allow that to become two-way as well. And then looking at the cross section, this is a proposed cross section, looking at one of the tighter sections along the corridor. that we looked at a number of different combinations of bike lanes, sharrows, maybe a bike lane in one direction and sharrows in the other direction, parking on both sides, parking only on one side. And this tended to be the cross section that the most people gravitated toward. And that is parking on one side and 2 4-foot bike lanes. That's a very narrow bike lane with a 2-foot buffer between the parking and the bike lane, and then 2 10.5-foot wide drive lanes. Again, this is one of the narrower sections, so we could, when we get into a wider cross section, we could go to wider bike lanes, put that extra width in the bike lanes. But this is the recommendation of that study. And also, again, this isn't design, this is a concept that if we do implement this, we would go into a design phase and we would look at these things quite a bit closer. But for now, this study is just saying that, yes, it's feasible from a traffic standpoint, it's feasible from a geometry standpoint as well.
Jeremy, did you have any feedback yet from City Bus? Because I know 10.5 is getting pretty narrow for them.
I don't remember if City Bus gave us, I believe we did have some questions from them that we answered. It is a bit narrow for them. I believe that their bus width is around 9 feet. And then once you add on mirrors on top of that, it's getting pretty wide. So to that, I would just say that we do have the bike lanes there, although you don't want people using the bike lanes as a buffer. You can get a feel kind of for these widths if you if you go south on 4th Street from this location. Just recently, some bike lanes were put in. For the most part throughout the corridor, they're 6-foot bike lanes, but there was a location where they had to go down to 4 feet, right there around Banh Mi and the Biltmore. So in that vicinity, you can kind of see what a 4-foot bike lane is like. Okay, any other comments, questions? All right. Move on to the traffic signal, YMCA traffic signal update. This one won't take near as much time. We got a consultant hired. They performed the traffic counts. They're wrapping up the analysis on that, and once that's complete, we'll meet with NDOT to go over their recommendations and begin the design. And I'm still hopeful that this signal could be built before the spring of 2021. So that's the update there. And then moving on to city engineers report. I don't have a major report other than to say we've talked about Twickenham Boulevard in past meetings between 9th Street and Poland Hill Road. We've, on that project on the eastbound side, we've completed all but the surface coat of asphalt on the trail and on the road section, and we've switched traffic over to that eastbound direction. They're currently building that westbound side, but we had some utility relocation delays, should we say. And so right now they're kind of focusing their attention on, there's going to be a trail connection from Twickenham Boulevard up to the trail that parallels the railroad tracks just south of Armstrong Park. They're building that section along 9th Street right now. And then they'll turn their focus back to Twickenham Boulevard. But they're making great progress on that project and really not behind schedule, even though we've had this delay. The weather's been really good to them this year, so that project's going well. And then just, I know we've talked about this before too. We purchased our own pavement marking truck, paint truck, and the traffic team did a great job this year, and they've pretty much finished all the pavement markings in the whole city. If you go back, I don't know, at least in the 3 years I've been here, that's way better than what we've seen the last 3 years. Or the last 2 years before this year. If you see any issues with pavement markings like the ones, Bob, that you brought up there at the corner of Creasy or any other locations, just let us know, because we now have a truck and we can go take care of those instead of waiting for a contractor to come in. So.
Congratulations on that, Jeremy. That's great.
Thank you. Thank you. We're pretty excited. They've done all the pavement markings, and they've including 4th Street after the everything was approved at Parking Commission to remove parking for the bike lanes. They've done those recently. They're working on thermoplastic this year, and almost. Nick was telling me they were halfway finished with the thermoplastic already, so they're really doing a great job, and it's looking good. So we're happy about that.
We've had some complaints about the markings near the donut shop on 4th Street. There's some white marks on the pavement there now. They have painted other marks, but I wondered about these white marks that are left there. That indicate they're going to be painted there, or what is it?
So if they're just small dots,
no, these are pretty impressive white lines.
Okay, as far as the lane configuration there, we're finished. We do have some bike lane markings to finish up.
This is a marking where people are going into the donut shop.
Do you know what the specific complaint is?
They feel there's not enough room to do it. The white marks are really meant to be there. They're going to be turned into yellow markings.
Jeremy, I think what he's talking about is the temporary markings we put down on Sawmill to turn into Mary Lou Donuts.
Right.
They're just temporary. Nothing there is permanent yet. We recapped the permanent markings that were there existing. But the proposed left turn lane going in, Jeremy and I, we haven't finalized anything on that yet. And all those paint markings that are there, they're just temporary. They will wear off in a couple, 2 to 3 weeks. Sooner than that, we get some rain and we get into it, it'll definitely be gone. So that's all temporary. Nothing there is permanent.
Okay, so just for everybody else's benefit, I know what you're talking about now. So this is the donut shop, Mary Lou Donuts, and right now, eastbound on Sawmill Road, you have a right turn lane and a left turn lane, but inbound there is no demarcation of lanes. And we were considering actually putting a line there that would allow those left turning vehicles into Mary Lou Donuts to stay in their lane, so that people who were trying to enter Sawmill Run would be able to get past them. Because what happens right now is that it just backs up here, and then people who are wanting to get into Sawmill Run, they can't get past. So that was something that we temporarily laid out just to see what it would look like if we were to add those as permanent pavement markings. And I think what you find is, what was the width of those, Nick?
We were only ending up with 2 10-foot lanes.
Yeah, that is really narrow. But we're not talking large vehicles here either. We're talking cars and trucks, but no large vehicles. So that's something we hadn't really decided on yet, Ron.
Okay, good.
Jeremy, while you're in that neighborhood right there where you are, I'd like to ask about when the paving machines will be back, because it's been almost 10 months since they left.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, they were supposed to be paving this past Friday and Monday. That didn't happen, but it's been rescheduled for September 14th through the 18th to be in this vicinity.
Very good. Thank you.
So it will get done. All right. I guess this is the public comment portion. I don't think there's public on here. I don't know, Rob, if you're watching for public comment on YouTube. Okay. So I'm going to do this like I've seen Professor Fricker do it in another meeting. If anybody has a reason why we shouldn't adjourn, let us know.
I move we adjourn.
All right.
Second.
All right, then we're adjourned. I'm not going to take a roll